Well, joining us now to discuss is a congressman representing Louisiana's 1st District and House Minority Whip, Steve Scalise. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Dana, it's great to be with you. Thanks.
Well, thanks for being here. It's really important that we hear from you. You know, I look at what's happening to Ukraine, and with our expansive intel, I keep asking myself, is this something that we could have prevented sooner?
Yes, Dana, in that video you just showed of the father saying goodbye to his kids, it's heartbreaking, but it was also avoidable. Look, months ago, Ukraine was asking the United States for basic help that we could have provided. And I'm not talking about boots on the ground. I'm talking about surface-to-air missiles. Right now, they're saying the biggest threat that they're getting is by air superiority that Russia has. We could have provided them with aid in terms of surface-to-air missiles to help shoot those planes down. President Biden said no. He was afraid of offending Putin. And this is where the weakness of President Biden's leadership is hurting our allies around the world. You saw it in Afghanistan, and frankly, I think Putin saw that weakness in Afghanistan. And you're looking right now, Xi is probably watching to see how this plays out to determine what he's going to do in Taiwan. But as we look and pray for the people of Ukraine, they were asking for things that we could have provided. But today, President Biden could do things that he still won't do, and that is take away Putin's main leverage. And by the way, his main source of financing this war, and that is oil. When Joe Biden shut down American energy on day one, killing the Keystone Pipeline and putting a ban on drilling on federal lands and even broadening that here in America, he also then begged Putin to produce more oil. And so when you see oil prices shooting above $100 a barrel, that's equating to about $60 billion in extra money that Putin's going to have to finance this war. If Joe Biden just reversed his policies on energy, he could take that leverage and that money away from Putin right now. I've called on him to do that. He still won't do it. And in fact, he exempted Russia from their oil from the sanctions that he put in place. So for whatever reason, he wants to allow Putin to continue making billions of dollars off of oil sales that we could be providing to our allies in Europe and to our own country here in America.
Yeah, we mentioned it on the show these past couple of days. I'll repeat it again. It actually hurts Europe and Germany more shutting down the pipeline than it does Russia. So it kind of just seems pointless. And from what I've heard you just said in your response, all of this could have been avoidable. You know, I don't understand why Biden isn't sanctioning Putin directly, not just his inner circle, but where it hurts him the most, his finances. Okay, we need to apply the real sanction of removing him from the Swiss international banks.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's been talked about. But just look at Joe Biden's position on foreign policy throughout his career. He's always been reactionary, and unfortunately, he's always been wrong. He was the one who didn't want to take out Osama bin Laden when Barack Obama was president. Thank God Obama, at least after Joe Biden left the room, said, okay, ignore that. Let's actually go take him out. And we did. Biden is now the person calling the shots. And so it's hurting our friends around the world. Look at Iran moving towards a nuclear weapon. Again, look at Taiwan and what China's looking at. But the immediate problem is Ukraine. He could have done things to give the people of Ukraine, who are great, strong people. They want to fight for their country, but they were asking us for some of the tools. You can't go on eBay and buy a tank-busting missile or a surface-to-air missile. Biden wouldn't provide that for them. And this isn't troops on the ground. This is just tools that your friends are asking you for to protect you against enemies. And Biden was more concerned about Russia than he was about Ukraine. This has devastating consequences. You know, look at Eastern Europe. Is Poland going to be in jeopardy? Is Lithuania going to be in jeopardy as Russia continues to want to expand and rebuild the old Soviet empire? Those are questions that need to be asked, but it was all preventable. And again, Joe Biden today can take steps to take leverage away from Putin by opening up the spigots of American oil. It would surely help our country's economy, but it would take leverage away from Putin. And if they're worried about global warming and climate change, are they worried about what is the carbon footprint of this invasion? And by the way, when Russia produces oil, they emit more carbon than America. We should be producing more oil anyway, but we surely should be taking away that leverage Putin has.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I do want to revert back to that. In the meantime, though, I want you to see this footage we have for you. Right here at the Kiev train station, more than 100,000 people are fleeing for their safety, desperately trying to make their way out of the capital. Roll tape. All right, so you just saw that, we're hearing gunshots followed by those loud screams. This is absolutely heart-wrenching. I completely disavow what's happening. I also just gathered reports that there are newborn infants that are being removed from their neonatal intensive care units. They're being placed now in makeshift bomb shelters. So the country is flooding right now. And, we have our own immigration problem. I'm just speculating here. Is the U.S. going to be a safe haven for the Ukrainians? Are they going to come over here, and are we going to take them in as refugees? Your thoughts?
Well, I would imagine some of our NATO allies in Europe are preparing to receive some of those people who are fleeing. Again, it's heartbreaking to watch. It angers you too to know that this was avoidable. But look at the cyber crimes. Right now, Russia probably was doing some things to take out some of the command and control operations as well as the electricity grid in Ukraine, because they're one of the largest sponsors of cyber attacks in the world. Do you know that just a few months ago, Joe Biden released a guy was in American prison, one of the largest cyber attackers in the world. We had captured him. He had stolen millions of dollars from Americans. And so he was in American prison. He was a Russian. And Joe Biden sent him back to Russia. No one's ever explained why. Makes absolutely no sense. But I wouldn't be surprised if this guy's directing some of the cyber attacks against Ukraine. And he was in an American prison just a few months ago, and Joe Biden turned him over to the Russians. Please explain some of this to me. I know the Ukrainian president is furious with President Biden. He's there fighting for his country, trying to get help, trying to get allies. And Joe Biden is just sitting back, calling Putin names. But when it comes time to actually take action that would hurt Putin in the wallet, he said no.
Yeah, you said it. I want to mention it. I don't have the direct quote in front of me, but the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, did say, this might be the last time you'll ever see me if we don't get more assistance and aid and help. So very interesting to point out. I want to go back to the pipeline, Nord Stream 2, that you were talking about earlier. Some countries have already looked to countries like Saudi Arabia and Australia for their energy and gas. We expand drilling in federal land. We don't necessarily need Russia. These are full measures. I think the U.S. relies, forgive me if I'm incorrect on this, but I think it's 595,000 barrels of oil to Russia. We need to get out of that ASAP. Why do we still need to rely on Russia if we can find other avenues?
There's absolutely no reason for it. We were supplying all of our energy needs, and we were exporting oil and natural gas to our allies around the world. Putin had absolutely no leverage, but by the way, OPEC didn't have leverage either. And now when President Biden came in, killed Keystone, as you pointed out, green-lighted the Nord Stream 2 pipeline in Germany. Everybody was scratching their head about that one. But then he also shut down drilling on federal lands, and he's expanded that ban on drilling, even though the courts have said you can't go that far. Open up American energy. Take the leverage away from Putin. By the way, oil was less than $2 a gallon when Joe Biden took office. You could drop the price of oil by $20, $30 a barrel just by opening up American energy. And that takes billions of dollars away from Putin. It helps families here in America, which would be great, but it would also take billions out of the pocket of Putin, who's using that oil money to finance his invasion of Ukraine.
All right, also, Congressman Scalise, we saw this trending yesterday. A poorly timed Applebee's ad made its way onto the CNN broadcasting lines. It's catching a lot of flack. Take a look.
And a little bit of chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right.
I mean, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, you have to run ads. It's a way to make money, but this is so insensitive. It's terrible timing. This leads me to think, is the network desperate for money? Their ratings have taken a nosedive since Trump left. That's, across all channels and networks. But that was like their saving grace. They have nothing now. They had Trump and now they have nothing. Instead of pushing Russian collusion, they can now push Russian invasion, sponsored by Applebee's, of course. Your thoughts?
Well, and CNN, their ratings are dismal, as you point out, and it's because they've only been focused on hatred of Donald Trump, not on covering the actual news. I think people are tuning them out because they know that you're not going to get just a straightforward, honest unbiased assessment of what's happening in the world. And people want that. They deserve it. You know, you can watch your show and get that. Let's let both sides get the story out there. That's not what you get on CNN anymore. It's unfortunate. I hope they change their programming style. Maybe they'll get some viewers back.
All right, one last question for you, Congressman Scalise. So CPAC is underway, obviously. This is a giant platform for the GOP and conservatives. They're talking about Russia, election integrity, policy, and more so than that. Indicators are now pointing to a red wave. Are you confident that will happen, given what's going on with Biden?
Look, everywhere I go around the country, you see such an enthusiasm behind conservative principles, you know, the things that have always made this country great. But then there's a real anger about what President Biden has done to make our country weaker here at home as well as around the globe. Everywhere you look, I mean, inflation in America is probably the #1 issue. The border being out of control, high gas prices, schools just allowing parents to be involved in their kids' education. Biden is wrong on every one of those fronts, and so is Pelosi. And then you look at the foreign policy failures, and frankly, it just lays a plate where there are a lot of Republicans who are going to flip seats from Democrat to Republican this election cycle because people want to take their country back. You saw it in Virginia where they said, we've had enough. Virginia is not a swing state. It's a blue state. But yet they elected Youngkin because he ran on a platform. It was a bold conservative platform of allowing people to have freedom again and allowing parents to be involved in their kids' education again. We're going to be talking about that a lot over the next few months leading up to November. And I think you're going to see us win a lot more seats and ultimately take the House back for that, for those purposes.
I think so far, last time I checked, there's now 30 Democrats not seeking re-election. That's pretty major.
30.
So 30. Okay, we're up to 30 now. I'm guessing, you know, I speculate, but I'm guessing it's going to keep going up, depending on how the situation looks right now. So we got to leave it there. House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, thanks again for being on the show today, sir.
Sure. Great being with you, Dana. Thanks.